On this program, Torah in the Home, we shall speak about the portion of the week that we shall read the following Shabbos. And this is the Sedra of Vayeitzei, and this is in the Chumash of Bereshis, Genesis, chapter 28, sentence 10. And I begin, Vayeitzei Yaakov me Be'er Shova. And Yaakov went forward from the city of Be'er Shova, Vayelech Chorono, and he went unto Choron. The Torah in the previous Sidra told us that Jacob was beset by the antagonism of Esav his brother, and Esav was determined to erase Yaakov in any way possible, even if it was necessary to do away with him by murdering him. And Yitzchak and Rivka, the parents of Yaakov, said to him, under these conditions, there is no other alternative but that you should leave home. And they told him to go on to Choron to visit the cousin, that is his uncle rather, Lavan, the brother of Rivka, and there to try to find his companion in life and carry forward the destiny that the Almighty had decreed upon him. And the Torah begins to tell us that Yaakov went forward from Be'er Shova, and he went unto Choron. And the Medrash asks the question, was Yaakov the only one that went forward? Many people go out of a place, and yet an everlasting mention is not made of the fact that they have left. And yet in this case we find that the Torah tells us that Yaakov went out from Be'er Sheva, and he went unto Choron. And Rashi also brings down this explanation of the words of the Medrash, and he brings the quotation of the Medrash that says, this is to teach us that Shem Yitzias Tzaddik min Hamokim Oisa Rosham, that when a tzaddik, a righteous individual, leaves a place, the impression of the loss is felt by all. Because during the time that the tzaddik, this righteous individual, is in a city, Bizman sheha tzaddik ba'ir, in the time that the tzaddik is in the city, hu hoida, hu ziva, hu hadora. He is the pride, the glory, and the illumination of the entire city. Yotza Misham, when the tzaddik leaves there, then its pride, its glory, and its illuminative quality leaves, and consequently each and every one feels this great loss. And therefore the Torah says, Vayeitzei Yaakov mi Be'er Shova, this exit was not like any other. When Yaakov went forward, everyone knew that there was something missing in the city. The presence of this great individual was felt while he was there, and the lack of his presence when he left, was also something that each and every one regarded as a severe loss. When we look at these words, we try to understand what do we mean that when the righteous is in the city, he is the most important of the city. But the answer is, my dear friends, that the great people of our generation and the generations that have gone before are not those who limit their activities merely to their 4 cubits in which they find themselves, but their interest extends to each and every one around them. And when a rabbi and a tzaddik is interested in everything and partakes in everything, he is not a hermit who lives completely removed from the life of the people, but he lives with the people and tries to elevate them. Such an individual, his presence is felt during the time that he is there, and when he leaves, a great loss is sustained by all who knew him. There is an emptiness that people attribute to the fact that this great person is no longer with them. The truly great rabbis of our people knew that their position is a responsible one not only in regard to themselves, but that they had a duty to perform in every matter dealing with the members of their community. Each one's problem was the problem of the rabbi, and he did not justify himself just by saying that he is a man of God and therefore occupies himself only with the religious questions that come to him. He did what was good for the benefit of the needy in every matter that was connected with everyday life. The rabbis of old helped to build hospitals. The rabbis of old helped to build orphan homes. The rabbis of old were those who tended the sick in the time of illness and contributed and participated in every communal effort. Today, of course, much of this work is being done by communal leaders, not of the great and religious qualities of our people, but yet throughout the ages, the rabbis of old exemplified within themselves not only that which is related between man and God, but also that which is expressed between man and man. And this is what the Rashi explains, that when the tzaddik is in the city, he is the pride of the city. And in that time particularly, when the world was a barbaric one, and each and every one was interested only in himself, to the degree that a person would seek only his own personal benefit, the Jewish people were different. The great ancestors of our nation devoted themselves to the interests of each and every person. And so it has gone, and so it has been, and so the biography and the history of our great nation, the biography of the history of a nation as a whole, has always looked upon the Jewish leaders as being the leaders in everyday matters in life. Of course, there are people today who sometimes say of the rabbi, "Oh, Rabbi, mind your own business." And the business of the rabbi, they say, is only limited to matters between man and God. But the real truth is that this is not so. It is the business of the rabbi to interest himself in the welfare of each and every person, without regard whatsoever as to what this person will actually think of the rabbi. And therefore he must not wait until he is called. He is the one to call first and to do whatever he feels is necessary. And today this is as true as it ever was. The great men of the Spirit sometimes fail to exercise this duty because they feel that they may be told, "Rabbi, mind your own business." But there is brought to my mind the story that helps to bring forth a little of the explanation in this regard. On a train, a young girl was traveling, and next to her a rabbi sat down, and in the course of the conversation he asked her a simple question about herself, particularly about her spiritual self. And in the course of the conversation, the rabbi asked her, "Are you sure that you are really on the right road?" Because the youth, today in particular, seems to feel that everything that they do is right, everything that others before them have done is wrong, and therefore they are the ones who are the leaders, and what they do is the path that leads in the right direction. And in the course of the conversation, when the rabbi asked her, "Are you sure that you are on the right road?" she became very indignant, and she called over the conductor, and she said to him, "Conductor, this man has sat down next to me, and he is speaking to me words that I feel he has no right to say. He makes me feel perfectly dreadful." That was the language that she used, and therefore I would like you to remove him from the seat next to me. And the rabbi thought that the conductor thought that the rabbi was speaking to her words that were obscene. He was making advances that were not proper. And the conductor asked her, "What did he ask you?" And she said, "Well, he's asking me whether I am on the right road." And the conductor said, "Well, what's wrong if he asks you this?" And at this point the rabbi intervened, and he turned to the girl and said, "When you boarded the train, did the conductor ask you anything?" And she said, "Yes." And the rabbi asked, "What did he say?" And he said, "He asked me where I was going." And the rabbi said, "Well, did you mind?" And she said, "No." And the rabbi continued, "Well, why didn't you mind? Let me explain to you why you didn't mind. You knew that he was asking you to save you from a possible mistake." I, as a rabbi, he continued, have the same motive. The only difference is that my question is far more serious than the one that the conductor asked, because if you are not going in the right direction, you could make a change very easily. However, if in life you are making a wrong turn, and in life if you have chosen the wrong path, it is here that it is very, very difficult to make a change. Then why does the rabbi continue? Do you regard my question as being wrong, while the question of the conductor as being proper? And my dear friends, there is a logic to this, because in his own words he was expressing the feeling that a spiritual leader who is interested in the benefit of the people around him cannot wait until he is called, and sometimes he must arouse the interest and also, from time to time, the indignation of the people to whom he speaks. People will rebel against being awakened to the facts, to the realities of life. And when the truth is pointed out, which would mean a turnabout from their ways, they will not wish to accept and try with every possible means at their disposal to reject. And if it's necessary, they will abuse the individual who speaks these words. But the real truth is that as time goes on, and as people begin to understand that there are no hidden motives in the words of this leader, he has only one thought in mind: the betterment of the people with whom he comes in contact. And here again I am reminded of one of these individuals who once attacked a rabbi verbally, and he said to him, there was a distinguished rabbi here in America who worked very much for the welfare of others, and this individual could not understand this. And he once attacked the rabbi verbally by saying to him, Rabbi, everything that you do is only because of monetary gain. You study because you gain financially. You speak because you are paid. You come to a eulogy because you receive compensation. And therefore, this man says, you are only a money man and nothing more. And the rabbi tried to explain to him the work that he was doing, for which he was not being paid, the efforts that he was investing in areas in which he received only abuse, and it seemed that his words were not acceptable. And the rabbi finally said to him, listen, let me ask you a question. You do things for money too? And the man says, yes. Well, let us look at the difference. What do you do for money? You work on the Sabbath because you want to work money. You overstep your boundary in competition, in hurting your fellow man because you want to make money. You find justification in unethical dealings because you want to make money. Now let us look at the difference. I speak to people to enlighten them according to your words for money. I eulogize and bring words of condolence to people only because, as you say, I am paid money. I speak in public and I study Torah with people only, as you say, because of money. Now let us take my reward and yours. You are desecrating everything in the name of money, and I am doing what is right in the name of money. Do you think that your attack was justified? And did this person, the man, realize the true position of the rabbi, and he recognized his mistake, and he begged his forgiveness. And my dear friends, there will come times in the life of each and every individual when he is confronted by a great leader who may ask him, what are you doing in your religious life? And the person may be offended, but in truth, this spiritual leader is interested in his benefit for the simple reason that he has nothing to gain by speaking to him in the manner that he does, only that he is able to bring about a re-evaluation on the part of the listener to the words that he says. And therefore the Torah explains, when the tzaddik is in the city, He really is the pride and the glory. And sometimes it happens that the loss has to be felt only when the righteous person leaves the city, when his influence and his endeavors, when his devotion and his loyalty to everything that is fine and good is lost. Then we begin to feel the emptiness that is brought about. And this the Torah explains in the case of Yaakov Avinu. Our father Jacob, he went out of Be'er Sheva, and everyone knew that he had gone, because there was no one to accomplish that which he did during the period of his being in the place that he was. And the Torah goes on to say that as he continued on his travels, Vayivga b'makom, and he came to a certain place, night had fallen suddenly, and he spent the night there, and he took from the rocks of the place, and he put them around his head, and he lay down to rest. And our sages have said that when he came to this place, he instituted the tefillah of Ma'ariv, the prayer of Ma'ariv, the prayer of the evening prayer that we have today. Even the greatest of the great, when they come to a moment in which they realize that they can go no further on their own strength, they turn to the Almighty. And this has been the strength of our people. This has been the support. This has been the spirit of life that has given continuance to our existence upon earth, to be able to turn to God in time of need, and to be able to ask of Him and pray to Him that He should answer. My dear friends, it was King David, who said, and I quote, Ki gamul alei imo, just as a little child with his mother, so also am I with the Almighty. A little child knows that when he wants something or she wants something, she runs to mother and begs of mother and cries to mother and asks of mother, and mother grants it. And so King David said, when I turn to the Almighty, I turn to Him with the simplicity of a little child who comes to his parents. I ask of God that the Almighty shall answer. I speak to Him whatever is in my heart, as a person speaks to his own mother, not even as a grown person speaks, but as a little child speaks. I speak in the language that I know, whether it be Hebrew or English or Yiddish or German or Russian, or whatever language it may be, because I speak to the one who is near me. And I offer prayer, and I beg of Him who lives forever, who is everlasting and omnipotent, to answer my request. And this in itself gives me the strength to continue, because I know that with God there is the greatest of help. And as King David used to say, and we say it every day in our davening in the Ashrei, Korev Hashem lechol koreov, the Almighty is near unto all who call upon Him. L'chol asher yikra'uhu be'emes, those who call upon Him in truth. There are people who come to God. They may not understand how to read. They may not be able to explain the interpretations of prayers, but they know that they are standing before God. They know that they are offering their prayers unto one who can help them, and this assurance gives the strength and the realization of the fulfillment of prayer, that the Almighty always answers. The Almighty is near unto those who call upon Him. When we call upon God, He is near, and He answers our request. And blessed is the one who is able to turn to God in a moment when it is necessary, and to be able to ask of God even the minutest things in life, even the smallest things that we could not ask of any human. We can ask of the Almighty without hesitation and without shame, for the Almighty has created us. He knows our short points and our qualities. He knows our iniquities, and He also recognizes our difficulties. And in such moments when we turn to the Almighty and we ask Him to help, it is the greatest of strength that we can express. There are people who say that to pray means to express weakness, that we cannot do everything alone, and therefore we must come to the Almighty. But my dear friends, this is not true. Did you ever hear of a person in life who was a scientist, for example, who would say that if I am not a builder, and I am not a plumber, and I am not a cabinet maker, and I am not an architect, then it means a weakness. We've never heard anyone say this, because this is not true. Then why, when it comes to the matter of prayer, should we regard this as being an expression of weakness? This is not weakness at all. It is the fulfillment of that which we ourselves cannot do. We do not stop to extend our efforts and say, Almighty, do for us. We do what we can, and at the moment when we feel that we need the help of the Almighty clearly, we turn to Him and we ask, and the Almighty answers. We are strengthened by the davening. We are strengthened by prayer, because prayer awakens the latent powers that we do possess, and not always do we use it. And therefore, my dear friends, when we stop to think that the greatness of an individual is not in being able to say, well, I am a self-made man. There is no one on earth who is a self-made man. Each and every one must attribute even the greatest of success to having had the occasion to be at the proper place at the proper time, as some people express it. But even this in itself is also the divine wish of the Almighty, that this person meet with the proper success, to be where he was, and to have the proper contact, and to be able to invest, or to be able to extend himself in a manner in which he should meet with success. There are people who think that they are the ones who do, and they are the ones who are successful. We find that in the Pirkei Avos, it was Ben Zoma, the great Tana, the Talmudic scholar, the one who devoted every moment of his life to study, who said, Ezehu Oshir, who can be regarded as one who is wealthy, Hasomeach Bechelkei, one who rejoices with his own portion. And many people have asked, how can Ben Zoma know who a true wealthy man is? He is himself an individual who spent every moment of his life in study, who never wasted a minute from the study of Torah. Then how all of a sudden does he become an authority to be able to say who is the right and proper wealthy individual? But the answer is quite simple. When Ben Zoma looked at the wealthy people, and he saw that with all their wealth they have no satisfaction in life, he saw that they have no rejoicing, he saw that the very basic requirement of the peace of mind is lacking, then he understood very clearly that it's not the wealth or the self-attainment of feeling that I am a man who has made myself, I am a self-made individual, this will bring happiness and contentment and satisfaction and peace of mind. And therefore he understood that wealth is not the different things that a person amasses during the period of one's life. It is rather that which he does with himself. And consequently he came to the conclusion that Ezehu Oshir, who can be regarded as the true wealthy individual, Hasameach Bechelkei, one who is able to rejoice with that which he has. There are people who build their wealth, but not themselves. There are people who build themselves, and this is the true expression of accomplishment here on earth. And even in the modern day and age, in the life in which we keep rushing forward, trying to gain an imaginary good that we hardly know whether we shall ever be able to reach, and yet we continue rushing from day to day. We haven't even a moment for ourselves to think clearly as a human being who has a mind to be able to invest in something that is good and fine, and yet we are merely a sort of a cog in a wheel, a sort of a screw in a wheel that continuously keeps turning all the time without knowing when to stop. And my dear friends, this is expressed in the interpretation that when Jacob came to a moment where he felt that he could go no further, he was despondent, he was going unto a world that he did not understand, he was going to a wicked relative who would ultimately take advantage of him, make him work day and night without stop, and yet he knew that he must go forward, for this was his only direction. He was embittered because he had to leave his father's home. He had to leave the holiness of the sanctity of the life of Yitzchak and Rivka. He had to go forward into a life that he did not know how it would be possible to be able to unite both together, the spiritual and the physical, the material and the heavenly, and both together he would have to unite them and live a life that would have to bring self-respect to himself. And yet his despondency did not express himself in giving up, not regarding anyone as being at fault, but he knew one thing, and that was Vayifga Bamokim. When he came suddenly to a place, night had fallen, he did not even have more than rocks around him to serve as protection from the wild beasts. He knew that the only thing that could be done, and the only thing that should be done, was to offer prayer to the Almighty. And this prayer became a part of the prayers of our people, to teach us that even in moments when night, God forbid, falls in life, when darkness seems to descend, when we don't seem to know what the future will be, it is not a moment in which to give up. It's not a moment to look back and to say, well, where did I go wrong? You didn't go wrong, but this is just a moment in which you should express yourself in prayer to Almighty God. It's not difficult to pray when you recognize that God is our Father. It's only the understanding that prayer is not a weakness, that prayer is actually a commandment of God, because God wanted us to turn to Him in moments of need. And if God Himself wants us to